Valery Bryusov was a Russian writer, poet, and historian. Born in 1873 in Moscow as the son of merchant Yakov Kuzmich Bryusov and Matryona Alexandrovna Bakurina. Once expelled from private school for atheistic propaganda, he studied at the Moscow State University. During his studies, he translated the works of Verlaine, Merling, and Edgar Allan Poe. In order to pretend symbolism was more popular in Russia than it was, and in order to attract new contributors, he contributed volumes of his own verse under different pen names, pretending they were an anthology. In 1898, he founded Scorpion, a publishing house devoted exclusively to symbolism. His prose collection Tertia Vigilia, which appeared in 1900, was highly praised among others by the poets Maxim Gorky, Alexander Blok, and Ivan Bunin. In 1904, he became an editor on the influential Vesey magazine. His poetry gradually became less popular by the 1910s as he began to drift away from his contemporaries in the field. Between 1918 and 1919, he worked as manager in the Bolshevik Department of Public Education, joining the Communist Party in 1920. He died of pleurisy in 1924. The Republic of the Southern Cross and other stories came out in English in 1918. Most of the stories coming from The Axis of the Earth, while Eluli, son of Eluli, and Rea Silvia were taken from the book Rea Silvia. The title story relates a great catastrophe that occurred in the fictional Republic of the Southern Cross, situated on the South Pole. Initially, the nation is a utopian society established 40 years prior to the report in the story, as a result of the merger of 300 steelworks that were located at the South Pole, the capital city that resulted therefrom being Zvezdny, or Star City, built on the South Pole proper. The catastrophe consists of a breakout of a mental disease called contradiction, where the afflicted agree if they wish to disagree, are abusive when they wish to caress, turn right when they wish to go left, etc. This disease, after 20 years, eventually spreads, devastates the country, and leaves half of its population dead while the capital is evacuated. It is a very grim little apocalyptic story indeed. The marble bust has a man visit a prisoner sentenced to years imprisonment for burglary. A former engineer, he recounts his love of Nina, a married woman and spouse of a railway official. He is no longer able to remember how they even first met, after he made himself forget her almost entirely due to not wanting her to drag him down from the path of a successful career. After his hopes ended in ruin, he sees a 15th century bust that reminds him of Nina in a window one day, and resolves to steal it, believing it will be able to restore the memories of the woman he had willingly erased from his mind. For herself or for another has a certain Basmanov meet a woman at resort who looks so much like a past love he had treated most basely that he thinks it must be her. And she tries to deny this all initially, but soon begins to toy with him, torturing him with doubt, whether to get satisfaction for herself or, as the title puts it, for another, being left unanswered by the end of the story. In The Mirror is a similar idea, only expanded upon. We follow a woman who is fascinated with mirrors from childhood, who is one day pulled into the mirror itself and has to watch her mirror double take over her life. After a lengthy struggle, she manages to resume her position in the real world and take up her own life once again. Or does she? Protection, a Christmas story, concerns a colonel who recounts how 25 years ago a woman rejected his advances due to the constant invisible presence of her deceased husband. The Bear Mall shop of stationery is the story of Anna Nikolaevna, who becomes the saleswoman at the Bear Mall stationery shop. Her only assistant spends most of his days sleeping, so Anna spends all her time alone in the shop, supplanting human relationships with the close attachments to the inanimate objects in the shop. Rea Silvia is a historical fantasy taking place in the second half of the 6th century. The focal character is Maria, the daughter of Rufus the scribe, who spends most of her days wandering through the ruins of Rome's mansions and palaces. She one day becomes fascinated with the bas-relief of Rea Silvia, anticipating the arrival of the god Mars, something which, to the deranged mind of Maria, seems to happen to herself when she meets Theodat the Goth. Subsequently, she becomes convinced he is in fact Mars in human guise, come to her so that she could give birth to the new Romulus and Remus. It is one of the best stories of the collection, managing to be Gothic despite taking place in 6th century Italy. Eluli, son of Eluli, concerns itself with Dutreuil and Bouverie, two archaeologists on a dig in Africa, disturbing the tomb of a Phoenician called Eluli and the curse that followed the opening of his tomb. In the Tower is another one of Brusov's ambiguous tales, a man dreaming he was taken captive in the Middle Ages by a cruel nobleman by the name of Hugo von Riesen. Just as he is about to be tortured to death, he wakes up. He proceeds to write of his experiences, relieved but then realized. What if he is simply still dreaming and is still awaiting death in the dungeons of Hugo von Riesen in the spring of 1241? An overall excellent collection, it should absolutely be more well known.